Welcome back for another episode of A Woman's Strength, empowering stories from struggles to triumph. My guests are women who share their stories of struggles, self doubt, and in the end, they are victorious. And sharing stories is so important because there are times when we feel lost. And when we listen to how another woman overcomes, that just brings us hope and ignites strength. So I'm Rosita Perez. I'm your host. I'm a self discovery coach and I'm a realtor. And I help people find their way home, whether that's a physical home or discovering the core of who they are. Today, we are in for a treat. So grab your coffee or your lunch or whatever you have to do because you want to sit tight and listen to this podcast with Marlu Soria. Hey, Marlu.
Hi, Rosita. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, I'm so excited about you being here. Now, let me tell you that Marlu is a life and mindset coach. She's a beauty expert. Her work has been in Vogue and several other places. I'm sure we're going to get into that. She's a licensed skin therapist and she's a professional makeup artist. She's that whole package in one. Marlu is joining us to share her journey from struggle to triumph. And I can't wait for her to share her wisdom and inspiration with us. So, without further ado, let's go ahead, Marlu, and get started.
Thank you, Rosita. And, from one multi-hyphenate to another, this is what we do, right? We just are out to live as big a life as possible. I love it.
Yes. And because we can nowadays, right?
Yep, totally.
And before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much for being vulnerable and coming on the podcast and sharing your story. Because a lot of times during the time that we are going through it, it sometimes it feels like we aren't going to get through it. And so I thank you for being vulnerable and sharing the pain and then sharing the victory after it all.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. I know that probably one of the biggest things that women struggle with is saying everything, sharing themselves wholly with the desire to just share and to be known and to be seen and heard. So thank you for creating this platform where women can actually share authentically and vulnerably all of it and still be loved for it. I think sometimes when we share struggles, people may think, oh, I don't want anyone to not like me because or just think I'm sad or depressing, but that's not it. So I'm looking forward to this conversation today. Thank you.
Yes. So let's go ahead and just dive in. So let me ask you, can you share a time when you faced a significant struggle in your life? And what were the circumstances?
Yeah, I thank you. Ugh. It's so funny, like all the emotions kind of come back when you start thinking about it. And I would say that probably one of my most challenging times was I was already in my mid to late 30s. I think I was 37-ish or so, 36, right around there. So I wasn't young by any means. However, I also didn't know what I was doing. I was still one of those people who was still kind of trying to figure out what it is that they wanted to do. Had a lot of blessings, had a lot of opportunities, had a great family. I actually, at the time, I was working for our family business, my mom's business, as a home healthcare agency. It was great work. I know that we were a contribution to so many. However, for me, myself, I didn't feel personally fulfilled. And at the time, I struggled with a lot of self-doubt, lack of confidence. My own worthiness for myself was barely present. And I had also just discovered that my boyfriend at the time of a couple of years had been cheating on me. So, there was like a lot of, I just felt lost. And because I wasn't fulfilled, I was also struggling with like my relationships with my family. And I really didn't know what I was doing. So with this ex-boyfriend though, after about a year, so it went on for a little while where I was just felt like I was struggling. I was having a lot of fun, but it wasn't fulfilling. And I knew that I wanted to find something to fulfill my life with, to feel like I was making a difference. Because that was one of the thoughts. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I'm just wasting this really great life. And I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And this ex-boyfriend, it had been about a year, and he had gone and done some personal development workshop. And he came back to me and he asked to, take me to dinner and have a conversation. He took full responsibility for his actions. He apologized, and it was great. I mean, that was something I was not expecting. And then he said, I did this really great, weekend seminar, would love for you to check it out. I can't do it. I can't do this personal development work because I thought if I went and I did it, that I would really see how bad my life was and that I would actually make it worse. But that's really how it was for me. So for 2 weeks, and, he called me up and he said, I went and I paid for it. I registered for you to be in that program. It was just really interesting. And for the 2 weeks before that program started, I had so much anxiety, migraines. I just felt, just so overwhelmed with like stress and anxiety. That was like a gift of my life for someone to say, look, I don't know how to help you, but here's something that could just be willing, and I'm willing to invest in you and who you are. That was a really great time to be able to have my eyes open to personal development work, to be able to see that I'm responsible for every single moment of my life. I get to choose or not choose what road I take, what relationships I have, what kind of job I go for. And it opened my eyes in new ways. So that was something where all of a sudden I had access to this new kind of life. I had already throughout my life really struggled with comparison syndrome, self-doubt, limiting, like, my own limiting beliefs, thinking that I could do it, imposter syndrome, confidence. And I always felt like I was one of those people who would fake it until you make it. But I felt like I was always just faking it. That was one of those things that I really struggled with when that breakup happened, when I found out. I mean, I had to be on medication. I was so sad and I was so hurt. I really had, like, thinking about it now, it was like, oh gosh, that poor young girl.
Let me just
And
let's just take a moment to just acknowledge that pain and that you had the strength to keep going. What woke you up to be like, no, I got to get out of this. I cannot stay in this pain.
what I do know is that with the self-doubt there, with the low self-confidence and all of the questions and the lots of voices that would go around my head, I also knew that deep down there was something good in me, and it was going to take work. And if I wanted it, I was going to have to fight for it. I'm actually present to now is who I was then in that moment. Like, I had so little love for myself.
I know that when we're in the mix of it all, we don't understand. We're just trying to get through it. But
Yeah.
now in retrospect, is that is that something that you recognize because of that pain?
I, I can see it now. I don't know at that moment that it was my lack of love for myself that allowed me to be in that situation. Because, right? And isn't that always a thing when you're complete with something and you look back, you can see all the red flags. And if I'm being really truthful, I saw the red flags and I chose not to like to say goodbye or to pay attention to them, because I thought at that time that was what I deserved.
That little girl, that young woman, I'm going to say, and I'm speaking to both of us, that young woman just trying to be loved.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, what I found out, Marlu, is I didn't even love myself.
Yeah.
And that's what I was attracting.
Yeah. For
is
sure.
somebody to take on that position of telling me I'm not worthy, in a sense, not necessarily verbally, but
Right.
by the behavior.
Yeah.
And then we let the treatment be okay. And then we beat ourselves up about that. So it's sobering to look back at that young woman, but it's also a blessing to know that, wow, I'm not that woman anymore.
Yes.
And not only do I see the red flags, I walk away from it and know that that is definitely not the path I want to go down. So it served a
Amen.
purpose,
Yep.
even though it was extremely painful,
Yeah.
and not in a totally to the right. Oh, I see that one sign. I'm not gonna, now we're mature enough to be like, okay, let me just be aware. And then when the signs start getting even redder, then we know and we can comfortably walk away with our
Yeah.
self intact. I mean, I think the pain was horribly heartbreaking.
I mean, I say it and I think it all the time. I am so grateful for that experience. It has made me who I am today. It gave me the fight that I have for women. It gave me my own discovery into my own beauty inside and out. It gave me the stand on what I'm committed to for women. I love having these kinds of conversations because I also, like you were saying, we know that pain and we also know what we've done to support ourselves, to make ourselves so resilient, to love ourselves. And if I can provide that for women, then I will relive that hurt because it doesn't impact me now. I mean, I'm having that moment because it was a tender moment and I honor it. And I also know that I've grown so much from it. It's given me so many great gifts.
I love that, Marlu, that you acknowledge it and you honor the pain
Mhm.
and you're able to keep moving.
Yeah,
It was a time in your life and you gained from it. And that's the thing. I think a lot of times we stay, whether we grew up with that whole victim mentality, right?
right.
Oh my gosh, I always heard I'm never gonna love again. I'm never gonna, ABCD. I mean, I did that for decades, and I ended up
Mm.
being president of Victimville for several terms
Several terms. Oh my gosh.
until I finally woke up, like, because that can eat you up.
Yeah,
That negative, that hanging on to the pain and the grudge and the resentment, that eats us up
yeah,
internally, and then it comes out in our medically, physically,
yeah. In our
our tone.
relationships, in our communication, in the kind of work that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's why you're such an amazing coach, because you can still connect with that pain, but you don't live in it. I
thank
love that.
you. Yeah. And that is one of the big things that I do endeavor to work with women on. It's how do we take the whole of your life and to create every obstacle as an opportunity? I know and it takes something. It takes some real intention. It takes real commitment to be able to shift our mindset, to be able to take a look at all those things that have happened to us in our life and to use it for I call it for my divine purpose, my divine right purpose. So, one of the things that you and I we had a little trouble with our technology, right? And for part of me, it was like, okay, what needs to be done? I'm trusting everything, every moment, every obstacle. And you and I, we got to keep standing in our leadership and to keep like, let's keep going. We know we have an important conversation. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. We'll reschedule. And we kept going for it until, like, look at us now.
Here we are,
Here we are.
making it happen.
And I think life is like that, right? It's like I get to choose every single moment. God's got my back and I get to choose. I've been given the right to choose, and what am I going to choose? Am I going to have this take me down? Am I going to have this uplift me?
So that's one of the specific actions that you used, is to your mindset. You knew your mindset had to shift. You had
Yep.
to make a choice between living in that pain, or are you going to choose you and move forward?
Yep.
So I love that. So what advice would you give a woman who maybe this is very fresh for her?
Mhm.
She just found out that her significant other has cheated. Tell me one to two things that you would tell this woman.
The first thing that I would say is be gentle with yourself. All those things that you're thinking that are continuing to keep you low, or that it's a conversation or a thought that is not serving you, just notice it, but don't have it take you out. So be gentle with yourself. Is that tracking? Like, sometimes like, oh, I'm never going to be good enough. There could be that, and then like actually live as if you're not good enough, if that's a thought that comes through your head, or that thought, because those thoughts are just going to thought, right? So it's, I'm not good enough, or you can actually show up as your higher self and notice, okay, I'm having that thought that I'm not good enough. And I know deep down in me that I am. So I'm going to be gentle with myself and just notice that thought. That I think is probably one of like the most challenging, but also one of the most powerful things that we can do whenever something challenging comes our way, is to notice a thought, but not be the thought.
I know when I go through tough times, I have the opportunity to access that inner power.
Yeah.
For me, I pray and say, okay, Lord, you see this going on right here, and this is not a good thing. The stress, the struggle, the whatever's not going my way. And I just have to fall back. Like you were saying earlier, we were having technical problems. Okay, my old self would have been like, ah,
Me too. Oh my goodness, what's wrong? We have to get this out now. All this noise, right?
the rising of the stress, right? But now that we understand ourselves, we've discovered ourselves, we learn to be kind and authentic. We're
Yeah.
connecting with our core. Then we can now say, okay, let's reboot, or let's try, or maybe we'll just have to reschedule. That is a gift. And it is very scary, right? Because we're in that pain. Great. I'm already dealing with pain. Do I want to dig into the more pain? Like, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
That's a lot to ask, but I can attest to it that if you just face it head on, it will serve you like no other time in your life.
If you can tap into that inner knowing.
Yeah. Because you had something in you that was saying,
Yep.
you can do this.
Yeah.
Right.
I know there's always been that little bit of fight in me, but for whatever reason, I went through that period in my life where I didn't believe any of it. Like I had just ignored it. And when it came time to just fight, and yeah, like you can see it. There's a moment when you can see, like, I know I'm going to go down this road. It's not going to be good. It's, I'll be drinking too much, not paying attention to how I take care of my body. I'm ignoring all my relationships, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing that, we
Yeah.
know when we're doing it. And yet there's something that we think we can't control. But if you can just take a moment, take a step back and dig a little deeper, and to notice the thought, but not be the thought, that will take you far. And the other thing too is, if you have it available to you, speak with someone. Speak with a coach, a trusted friend, and not just anyone. Speak with, like, if you have those friends who love you unconditionally and can hear you, and without wanting to give you all sorts of advice or whatever, but they can restrain. I mean, they'll give you advice if you ask for it, but they can refrain and they can just hold a space for you. I think sharing our burdens doesn't actually burden others, but it actually dissipates ours, especially when it's held with love, especially when you have the people that can hold us with so much love unconditionally. I think there's been a lot of programming, especially for midlife women, where we were raised with, you don't share your struggles. You keep it very private. You don't tell anyone. No one wants to hear it. And I think it's done a lot of disservice to a lot of people, a lot of women, and then women who have this belief, raised children in that way, which continues to perpetuate. And I think being able to share our struggles, knowing that it's a place to share because we're all in this together, makes a difference. And if you can work with a coach or a mentor or a guide through this process, it can support you in exponential ways.
You definitely need a healing team because you can't even hold yourself up sometimes when it's that big of a blow. So your advice is,
so be kind to yourself. The second thing is to really speak with someone, whether it's a trusted friend, or if you can get to a place where you can work with a coach or a mentor or a guide, then I highly recommend that. That has probably been that's the thing that I continue to focus on and invest in myself first now, all these years, is in my own personal growth and development.
and that's ongoing.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, I mean, for me, I recognize that each decade comes with different challenges and opportunities.
Yes.
In my 40s, I had a different challenge and opportunity than I did in my 60s. You have to just be open because you are constantly falling in love with you.
Yeah.
And when you fall in love with you, you are able to give from a place of love.
Yep.
Because you have it for yourself. So you can
Yes.
share. Just make sure you're sharing with the right folks.
Yes. Yeah.
That's important.
It is. I really do. I believe that there's, have you heard that quote before? People come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. I absolutely believe in that. And just because someone is in your life for a short reason, for like a short period of time, and then they somehow go away or whatever, they're no longer as prevalent in your life, it's okay. It's okay because they served your purpose. If you know that even if you're not together now, there's nothing that's incomplete, there's no hard feelings or anything, then you can bless that, right? I think there's always people go in and out of our lives. And I share that because I used to have a lot of trouble, like with people no longer in my life. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I keep friends or blah, blah, blah. Well, it's because they're not meant to be there. And it took me a while to figure that out. So I thought maybe I would mention that if anyone's dealing with that.
I love that because then you basically put a bow on it. And then there are people, like you say, long time. My best friend and I have been friends since we were 7. And so now we used to party together. We were talking about that the other day, how we would go to the club and we just laugh because that was that season. And now we're both in church and now we talk about God. I give her the permission to speak to me in truth because I know she comes from a place of care and concern. She's not just saying it just to hurt me.
Yep. That's what I'm saying, like having those special people in your life, that just hear you. Because sometimes that's all that it is. We just need to be heard. We just need to be known that just someone knows us, someone gets to witness our life.
Yes. And we are not meant to do life alone. So I'm glad that you gave the advice is to be kind to yourself. And the other one is have a great support system, people that you feel safe with, people that you can trust, people who have your best interests at heart. So let me ask you, I know you went through the struggle of the betrayal and the heartbreak. You had your inner self really pulling you to the direction of, no, you got this. Come on, there's something bigger for you. And you listen and you move forward and did your work, surrounded yourself with the people who are not just right now, but for a lifetime. You moved forward. And where are you now?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, where I am now is I'm a life and mindset coach. I'm a beauty expert. That's one of the things because I struggled so much with my own beauty, my inner beauty, my own confidence, and I worked on it. I mean, one of the things I say is I've spent, over the last 15 years and over 10,000 hours working on myself, being the best me that I can possibly can. And I'm nowhere near close getting to that place where I've got it all handled, right? It is a lifelong process. like you said, I'm a licensed skin therapist and a makeup artist. I love to empower the outer beauty, but also have it be an expression of your inner beauty. So what is the beauty that you want to create and cultivate and share in the world? I'll support you in discovering what that is. Could it be the career that you choose? Could it be in your relationships? Could it be in your personal community projects? Let's discover what that is, and we'll create that plan to have that happen. Also, maybe there's something you want to do, especially as midlife women, our bodies change. We go through hormone changes, the way in which we're in this world with this huge beauty standard, right? And we cognitively know that there's a beauty standard, but we're not always present to how impactful it is to our choices, to our own confidence, to the way in which we take action. So I love to work with women to guide them to discover how is it that I want to express myself, knowing that sometimes I'll make choices because I think that I need to look a certain way, dress a certain way. I need to be more youthful or be a different kind of personality than I actually am. So I love to work with women to find their authentic expression of beauty. And that's one of my favorite things that I love to do.
I love that, Marlu, because you turn your mess into now your message, right?
Yeah.
Because it was so deep for you that instead of using that energy to just cower down and feel like a victim, you said, nope, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to help other women because it helped me to do these things, and now I'm going to help other women so that they can have self-love and confidence and authenticity and be who they are, period, from the inside out. I love that. Now, you're also going to be on an event.
Yes, next weekend I will be speaking at the Women Loving Life Summit. I'm excited to share about really what does it mean to discover what this unique expression of beauty is. And it's not all just physical. It's how we sit, how we stand, how we speak to our loved ones, how we speak to strangers. That's all part of it. If we can start to cultivate and be really mindful about how we are expressing ourselves in the world, that's something I'd love to share with and have a conversation with women about. So I'm excited for next week. It'll be fun. It's a huge summit.
I love that. And also how we speak to ourselves.
Yes.
We have to speak kindly and respectfully to ourselves.
Yep. It always starts there.
So how can people reach you?
People can reach me. I'm on all the social media platforms at Marlu Soria. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. I do probably most of my posts on LinkedIn. And I also have a Facebook group that I invite women to join, and just to create this community of mindful beauties.
That's awesome. We will have those links in the description of the podcast.
Yay.
Marlu, thank you so much for joining us. We are at the close, and I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I also want to invite you to go to my website, movingforwardforlife.com, schedule your complimentary 30-minute clarity call where we can figure out a mini plan of what you want to do, how you want to overcome self-doubt, or whatever it is that you're struggling with. Remember, you are not alone. We are not meant to be alone or get through life alone. And you have the power to choose the trajectory of your life. You have a choice. So make that choice for you this time around, right? Thank you so much for joining us, Rosita Perez with Moving Forward for Life, Marlu Soria, the beauty expert, life and mindset coach.
Much for having me, Rosita. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.